Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 158 of Rush Roundtable and also episode 397 of Tim's Vinyl Confessions. This is our very first crossover between Rush fans and TVC. Of course, Tim's appeared on our channel many, many times, and the three of us have appeared on your channel a handful of times as well. But this is the first one where we're kind of branding as a crossover. So, as far as the panel goes, top left for me, we have Ralph Huffnagel, myself, Ryan Murphy. Bottom left, Todd Evans. We're all Rush fans. And bottom right, we have Tim's Vinyl Confessions. So this is alternate Hugh Syme album covers. So I'm going to let Tim explain this momentarily, but the way we're going to do this is we're going to go through chronologically. So starting from the debut album, ending with Clockwork Angels. And we're basically going to give you some Hugh Syme artwork that we think could have possibly served as a Rush album cover. So, Tim, why don't you go ahead and take it away with your inspiration and introduce whatever. Tim's our host for tonight, by the way. So there you go. It's all you.
Thanks, Ryan, and thanks all of you guys for indulging me in this particular flight of fancy. I've had this idea for a long time. Ryan and I have been talking about it. This all started. The idea, I'm not sure when it came to me. It's a few months ago, but as Rush fans, we all know that the artwork of Hugh Syme is a very vital component to our immersion into this music, into the musical universe that Rush created. The back covers, the front covers, the liner notes, the tour books, the DVDs, the T-shirts. Hugh Syme he's the guy. And I thought it would be fun because I just happened to notice in my own music collection how many album covers by other artists in my collection that were designed by Hugh Syme. And I thought it might be fun to do a little bizarro world exercise where, if we could pick something that Hugh Syme designed that was not a Rush album cover, but say, hey, you know what? This would have made a good cover for this Rush album or that Rush album. And I ran that idea through Ryan, and he went for it. So this is the crossover event. Nobody knew they wanted. This is like back in the 80s when they had Marvel Secret Wars comics. You have to be a certain age to get that. But I had a lot of fun doing this. Some of these came right to me. I knew exactly what ones I wanted to use. Some of them I had to struggle with. Some of them I'm still not completely sold on. Now, I went through and maybe went overboard with the idea. I did something for every Rush album, every studio album, that is, including the Feedback EP. The other guys have picked anywhere between 4 and 7, and that's cool. We're going to go through this chronologically, album by album. And for me, I don't know about you guys, but when I broke these down, they kind of fell into one of 4 categories. Either they were kind of abstract, maybe need a little bit of explanation, maybe need a deeper, really, really deep knowledge of the lyrics, the theme of the album. And once you know that, you go, okay, yeah, I can see why he picked this one. Number 2 is literal. You look at it and go, yeah, there it is. Makes sense. I get it. Number 3 is actually similar. This happens a couple times where it's actually quite close to another piece of art that Hugh did that ended up the Rush album cover. Because if you get a good idea, you can recycle it. And the 4th one is just humor, something that struck me funny, because as any serious Rush fan knows, these guys never took themselves too seriously. They took the music seriously, they took the presentation seriously, but they weren't above putting puns or jokes into their album artwork. So I thought, let's do this, in case, and I don't think there are many out here like this, but there might be fans that know Hugh Syme only as the Rush guy, and that's basically the thing he's most known for. That's why he called his book, Serving a Life Sentence. But he's done work for artists of all musical genres, for movie posters, for print ads. All you have to do is go to his website, hughsyme.com, or follow him on Instagram, Syme Studio, and you can see just the breadth of his work. So that's where the idea came from. And so I'm very much looking forward to see if we've got any similarities or something that somebody was like, wow, I never would have thought of that one. So yeah, I thought we'd do this chronologically. And we all know Hugh did not start designing for Rush until album number 3, but I thought it might be fun if, I did find alternate cover art for the first couple of albums. So I don't believe anyone else chose anything for the first Rush album, the self-titled debut. So I'm going to share my screen and show you what I thought of for the first, what might have worked in another timeline for the first Rush album cover. Now, we all know what the first Rush album looks like. It's, the great Donna Halper, our good friend Donna. What did she describe it as? A homemade hands or something like that? It's very homespun looking. But I like it. I love the logo. I love the font used. I love the whole explosion thing. It fits. So I thought, okay, explosion. What have we got here? So I'm going to share my screen here. And for my choice, I'm going to go with this. As soon as it decides to come up. Any minute now. Okay. Can you guys all see that?
Looks like it's delayed for me.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Still nothing, eh?
Still nothing.
Yeah, it's still thinking about it.
Okay. Fortunately, let's stop that. Fortunately, I brought everything with me. So that's what we'll do.
Okay.
We might have to cut that.
No, leave it in. That's great.
Okay. So for the first Rush album, I chose this. This is one of my favorite bands besides Rush. Not a lot of people know who they are. Well, some people do. Band's called Y&T, stands for Yesterday and Today. This is their 1987 album, Contagious, on Geffen Records. And what you see here is a vial or a beaker or a test tube being broken, and stuff is just exploding into the atmosphere. And you've got this line where it cuts off. This is a Hugh Syme designed album cover. So I thought, okay, it's an explosion. Yeah, why wouldn't that work for the first album? That's my choice for the debut, what I might have gone with.
Good stuff.
So Fly By Night, I know a couple of you have Fly By Night. Todd, what is your choice for an alternate Fly By Night?
Okay, well, I chose this particular image right here, and it was used for an album by the prog band called Tiles. I think this is a 2008 album, but I actually had 3 for that I picked out for Fly By Night, and I couldn't really sell the other 2, so I eliminated them. But this one is super literal, and I mean, I see the moon there. It almost doesn't look like night, but I think it's a great image, and so that's why I chose this.
Cool. And if I'm not mistaken, one of their albums at least was produced by Terry Brown.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I don't remember which one though.
So, and Ryan, you've got one for Fly By Night?
Yes, I do. You see that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, this one I pulled from his Instagram. I do believe it's also on his website. He's titled this Winterhawk. And of course, Tim's Vinyl Confessions liked this post on Instagram.
Apparently I like it.
But yeah, I think this one is. I took this one literally. This is a likeness. It's an owl versus an owl, right? So, and it's an owl, I guess, carrying a child. One shoe's falling off of him or her. I can't tell, but it's night. Same thing, moon. And I just thought it looked cool. I thought, this is Fly By Night is one that Hugh Syme didn't do. So I thought, well, if there's ever a 40th, or well, I guess 50th, right?
50th, yeah.
Coming, perhaps he could maybe tweak this or something like that. So that's mine.
Cool. So the one I picked for Fly By Night is very kind of similar to the one Todd picked. It's another prog band. It's a prog band that actually kind of, I guess you could say, maybe assumed the mantle of, progressive hard rock in the 90s. As a matter of fact, I believe from 2005 on, all of their artwork has been designed by Hugh Syme. So he's become their guy. And I don't know if you guys have noticed this or not, but when Hugh Syme does the design. It's all the way down to the font used in the booklet. I mean, it's very, very distinctive. So this band's going to be making a couple of appearances.
Yep.
This is Dream Theater, and this is their 2011 album, A Dramatic Turn of Events. So you've got somebody on a tightrope, and there's an airplane. No, it's not. I don't think it's at nighttime. It's pretty clear blue sky, but there's a plane. It's blue. So that's why I chose this one as a stand-in for Fly By Night.
I'm sure that Hugh could make that one night if he wanted to.
Oh, yeah.
A couple of tweaks.
Well, if I was any good at Photoshop, I could do it too. So I believe I'm the only one who picked one for Caress of Steel. So I'll just go ahead and show it off. This is actually one of the first ones I thought of. I thought, yeah, this is going to be Caress of Steel. This is Kiss and their 1992 album Revenge on Mercury Records. Caress, soft touch. It's not very soft looking, but it's very steel looking. It's these steel girders. And I just think it's a cool album cover. The band looks cool in the back. And this is the only time that they ever worked with Hugh Syme. But doesn't get much more steel or steely than this album cover here.
Tim, I thought when I started doing this, I thought Caress of Steel was going to be the easiest one. I thought, I'll find something for that. And then I could not find anything.
I do want to share this, that someone left a comment on our Caress of Steel deep dive the other day, Tim, and said that the necromancer on the front of the album cover was actually taking inspiration from the Saint Bruno statue at the Vatican. It's got the hand up in the air, the skull on the left.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's very cool.
I thought that was interesting. So
yeah. So oddly enough, we're at 2112 now, and I had a hard time with this one. I had a really hard time with this one, and because my screen sharing is not working, I'm gonna have to make do with it's a photo of the album cover, but it's from a compilation and it's got writing over it. So I'm gonna hold this up. It's another prog band. It's another prog band that's worked with Terry Brown and Hugh Syme. I don't know how well this shows up. This is the band Fate's Warning and their 1989 album Perfect Symmetry on Metal Blade Records. And I don't know how well you can see this, but you've got these old men at like an assembly line, and there are these statues or figurines going by. And this one's kind of abstract because you get the feeling that they have to be all exactly the same. And if one went by that wasn't exactly the same, there would be trouble. They would get rid of that one. And so everything's got to be the same, just like, no individuality in the story of 2112. To take it a step further in the abstract thing, I thought, in another, flip the timeline around. If anyone is familiar with, and not even into this band, but London Calling by The Clash. We all know what that album cover looks like. It's just a black and white photo of somebody smashing a guitar. If Hugh Syme had designed that album cover, that would work perfect for 2112 because they smash a guitar. But anyway, I had a hard time coming up with one for 2112, but I finally settled on that one. So I believe that Ralph has a selection for Farewell to Kings. So let's see what you have, Ralph.
My screen.
This episode is just us trying to figure out how to share our
Yeah,
screen.
right.
Yeah.
Work beforehand. All right, sure. Is that showing now?
Oh yeah.
So with this, so it's kind of reminded me of the Farewell to Kings album cover with the city in the background, and instead of a king, I'm picturing a queen, and it's kind of ambiguous if she's sad that the kings are gone, or she overthrew the king, and it's Farewell to Kings, hello to the queen.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah. And the pillars almost look like the 40th anniversary cover.
I was just about to say that reminds me more of the 40th
that ticks
cover
off a
than-
lot
yeah.
of boxes.
Mhm.
That's
Yep.
great.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
Isn't there? So what is that next to her? Like a crow or like
A peacock.
or
I mean,
something? Is it a
peacock?
peacock? Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't there like some? I don't know if it's a peacock or a crow or something, but there's some bird, I think, in one of the 40th anniversary graphics for the individual songs. I think it's like
I think you're right.
either
When also there's
Xanadu or
like a swan or something like that at the beginning of the video for the title song
for the
when they're
yeah,
outside. So yeah, no, that's a great one. That's
really
good.
good pick. Yeah, really good pick
Yeah. And it's, you can
Great.
tell it just looks like something. It looks like a Hugh Syme design.
for sure.
Yeah, great spot for the band logo right there in the top. in
Oh
the
yeah,
center.
all this open space. That's fantastic.
Yep.
Good choice, Ralph. So mine's kind of literal, but not for the album cover itself. And this is the second time this band's going to be talked about. This is Dream Theater again. This is their 2020 live album, Distant Memories, live in London. Now, okay, so the skull's not wearing a crown, but the first thing I thought of was the poster, and my son's actually got a T-shirt with that design on, with the skull and the crown. I was thought is pretty cool. Also, there's a Union Jack ghosted in there. You know, the album wasn't recorded in London, but it was recorded in the UK. So that's what I chose for Farewell to Kings.
Yep.
So the next one is the most similar of any of them, I think. And I'm gonna hold this so you can't see what it is at first. So for Hemispheres, I chose this. So you might be thinking, well, that's the Hemispheres guy, but it's not. This is the debut album from a band called The Storm. And The Storm was sort of an offshoot of Journey. This came out in 1991. 3 out of the 5 members of this band were former members of Journey. Greg Raleigh, who was the original keyboard player and vocalist, he was also in Santana. Bass player Ross Valerie, and a drummer that Neil has long admired, Steve Smith. Steve Smith figures into the Rush story because it is Steve Smith that introduced Neil, or suggested that Neil work with Freddie Gruber. But yeah, I thought this was perfect for Hemispheres because that looks so much like, you know, the guy in the suit on the cover of Hemispheres. So I thought that was one that was like, you know, hey, this is a good design. Let's do something similar with it. So that's my design for Hemispheres. So now we have Permanent Waves. 2 of you have designs for Permanent Waves. Let's see what Todd came up with.
Okay, so I came up with this right here. And I almost didn't pick that because I thought, oh, it's just waves. I just, picked the word waves, and that's why I picked that. But I actually, the more I looked at it, the more I liked the idea of using it for permanent waves. And I kind of feel like the when I first saw the real cover of Permanent Waves, I wasn't quite sure what it had to do with permanent waves. And so I thought, well, maybe I can just be really open with the interpretation. But I really like the images, and it's part of 3 different images. And on Hugh's website, they're called Popeye Adrift. And that's supposed to be some kind of version of Popeye.
That's why the boat looks like it says olive on it.
What's that?
The boat looks like it says olive on it, so that would make sense.
Yeah. I just thought that all 3 of the images were just fantastic, and so that's why I picked it.
That's good. I like that. And Ryan, you have one?
I do. This one's titled Global Warming. This one's also from his Instagram.
See, Jerry and Steve like this one.
Was liked by the Rushcast, yep. And Fantunes and Melanie as well, it looks like there. But yeah, I mean, for this one, I took, Landmark being flooded with waves. It was basically the background of Permanent Waves. That's a pier, I think, in Texas, we said in the Permanent Waves deep dive. I can't remember, but that's an actual landmark. It was from a hurricane. It was flooded with from the hurricane, and the Permanent Waves cover, you actually have I believe that's Hugh Syme right there waving on the left.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it just brought Permanent Waves to my mind when I saw this on his Instagram. So I thought it would be a good pick. Another kind of literal one.
Yeah, it's good. I don't think there are any bad ones. I mean, So the one I picked, again, like Todd, basically all I had going for me was waves.
There you go.
This is a Canadian band called Helix, hard rock band. And this is their 1993 album. It's a business doing pleasure. So what you got here is sort of a guy in a, like, suit and tie, business suit, and he's surfing. Well, that could also lead into the sort of, idea about commercialism talked about in Spirit of Radio. And you can't tell from this, but the wave, if you were to flatten that picture out, is actually a picture of what was our old Canadian $1 bill, which was, of course, supplanted in 1987 by our $1 coin, which, affectionately known as the loonie. So yeah, that's what I came up with for permanent waves. For my next one, moving pictures, I think I'm the only one that has one for moving pictures. And oddly enough, so 2112 and Moving Pictures, we all know, are the most successful Rush albums. They're probably the two I had the hardest time trying to find something that would fit. This is what I ended up with. This is the band Night Ranger and their 1988 album, Man in Motion. You've got a little tiny figure walking. I don't know if you can see that or not. Motion. He's moving. How moving a picture is it? I don't know. But that's what I came up with. So I had something for each album. So that takes us to Signals. And I believe Todd has something for Signals.
I do. Let's see here. Now, the only problem with this one is how would you crop it? I think you'd have to add more sky. But
yeah, make it more of a
as
square.
soon as I saw it, I thought, oh, that's Signals. I really like the image. I don't know if it, because it's aliens, whether it fits as well as,
You've got a black and white animal on there.
Yeah, it does. And that was one of the other things that I thought was cool about it, and it sort of tied it to Signals. But yeah, I chose that one.
That's cool.
Well, little do you know that is actually the 40th anniversary cover. No, I'm just totally kidding. Could you imagine though, like that?
Imagine if we got the scoop on that. Hugh sees us and goes, "Oh crap!
Oh crap!"
We have to pull the video down.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one, I would call this one very similar, but people are going to see this and go, "Why didn't he pick this for another Rush album?" And there's a reason for that. So for Signals, I picked this.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one and only album by Coverdale Page, David Coverdale from Whitesnake, and Jimmy Page. This came out in 1993 on Geffen, a Hugh Syme design. And yes, you're probably thinking, boy, that reminds me of Snakes and Arrows Live. And it does, but I thought this worked for Signals as well. Also, this is kind of a double meaning because if anybody's familiar with Led Zeppelin, their 1976 album Presence has this black object, this obelisk on the front cover, and then the series of pictures inside of it. In all these different environments, you see that black object. They kind of did the same thing with this. This road sign appears in all of these different settings. So that was like, you've got the Hugh Syme touch, but it's also a little bit of nod to the Hypnosis cover for the Zeppelin album. So yeah. There's a reason I didn't pick this for Snakes and Arrows. It was originally going to be, but I found one that, anyway, there was a few that I went back and forth on. So we all picked something for Grace Under Pressure, which is pretty cool. I think that title opens itself up to a lot of images, and I'm really curious to see what everybody has. Todd, what have you got for Grace Under Pressure?
Okay, so I have this right here, and this, out of all the images I picked, I think this is my favorite one. But I thought of it as, you think of Grace, you think of a little, a little girl could represent Grace, and she's certainly under pressure there. So
yeah.
So that's why I chose that one, and that's a beautiful image.
You could
Absolutely
conceivably use that for Fly By Night too.
Yeah, I thought about it.
Yeah, that's cool. So Ralph, what have you got for Grace Under Pressure?
I went with a little humor. Got this boy on a bicycle.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Right.
I've seen that one before. This one reminds me of my son because he's got very red hair.
Okay, right. He could have a more graceful look on his face, but just made me laugh. I said, "Oh, it's Grace Under Pressure."
Yeah. And Ryan, what have you got?
Another one here from Hugh Syme's Instagram. This one's called Uphill Climb. This reminded me of the After Image music video.
Yes.
There's a man
On one of those
one of those
old
huge
bicycles. Yeah.
huge tricycle looking things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just goes flying, through the picture like that, with that color scheme of a background. I mean, the whole thing with Grace Under Pressure is, exhibiting grace under pressure. That was what we talked about on the deep dive. And to me, it looked like this man is exhibiting grace under pressure. He's riding this, bicycle or tricycle up a hill into fire. I mean, and it also brought to mind the lyric "Between the Wheels," frozen in that fatal climb, but the wheels of time just pass you by. With the title of this piece, what Hugh called it with Uphill Climb, it brought that lyric to mind. So,
Yeah.
as Todd said, his choice was, one of his favorites that he chose, and same here with me too. This is definitely one of my top ones that I chose. So,
Oh, I like that. So mine's quite literal, and it's actually quite humorous too. And I've actually unfolded the CD booklet for this one. How well this is going to show up with all of the. So this is the band Tesla and their 1994 album, which is charmingly titled "Bust a Nut," which is an expression I was not familiar with in 1994. Now I hear it a lot. But basically, I'm guessing if you were to buy the vinyl, it would have this, this complete image on it. But I'll show you. I'll fold it back up and show you what the actual just front of the CD looks like. It's this very elaborate and, dare I say, steampunk looking, literally a nutcracker. And its sole design seems to be to crush this acorn, which immediately made me think of the C-clamp on the inside of Grace Under Pressure.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
There you go. So that one covers a bunch of bases for me. I think it's a little humorous, and it's also quite literal because you can see that, and it's got all this gadgetry. Like it's a really striking image. Unfortunately, it just doesn't show up that well.
yeah.
So that's Grace Under Pressure. Now, Ryan has Power Windows.
Ryan has 2 for Power Windows, of course, right?
Yes.
So this first one here is.
Oh yeah.
This is my last one from his Instagram. He says, created for my art gallery exhibitions. They're here. I assume "They're Here" is the title. I don't know. To me, it just reminded me of the Power Windows cover because of the television and a poorly lit room. So that was my thinking with that. Perhaps 40th anniversary of Power Windows box set cover.
Yeah.
That totally works. Yeah. Again, a great place for the band logo right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, if only he'd have made it a Dalmatian.
Yeah, it's almost like he's planning ahead here.
Yeah.
And then the next one here is this one's
I've
called
seen this.
Look. Yeah, this one's called Look Here. I think I took this one from his website. I think this is the last one that I have.
Is that not an album cover by Stone Sour?
I think it is. I think it's an
Yeah,
album
I
cover
think
for
so.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But to me, it reminded me of the back cover of Power Windows,
Yes.
which is the the blonde-haired boy with the binoculars up to
Binoculars,
his
yeah.
eyes. So I thought, yeah, could have been a cool alternate.
That's awesome. Okay, so for Power Windows, I'm revisiting an album cover I've already done to a certain extent. You all saw this, the Storm album cover with the Hemispheres dude in the cover. He likes the top-hatted guys, right? Let's flip this around. This is the back cover. And you see what appears to be like an old Volkswagen Bug immersed in water. Now, there's windows. Does it look very powerful? No, but we all know that Hugh and Neil like to use irony sometimes, just like A Farewell to King. So I thought, yeah, that might work for Power Windows, or the loss of power, or afraid to lose the power and end up like this. So that's what I chose for. I got double duty out of this one. Okay, so okay, Ralph, you've got one for Hold Your Fire.
So, and this one, I went literal. Again. Yeah. Sorry. Second.
Insert witty comment from Ryan here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
That's
showed
cool.
tried to.
Oh yeah, that's great.
I mean, it's right. Literal hold your fire.
Hold your fire. Yeah.
Yeah. So thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
He had two different images of it. One was a different color, and I thought the shred really stuck out.
Yeah.
What's the foreshadowing for Roll the Bones there? She's standing on the bones there.
There's also arrows, snakes
Yeah.
and arrows.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Got the bird in there again.
All
Which
those
he
elemental.
does do, like with his 40th anniversary box sets. He does foreshadow a little bit,
Yeah.
the
Oh,
Dalmatian.
there's the hold your fire
40th.
one, boys. We wait till 2027. God, that sounds
or the
long way
the
from now.
35th anniversary. Perhaps it's coming, like
Could be.
the day after this airs. Spoiler.
There you go. Okay, so so the one I picked for Hold Your Fire, again, it's not my favorite. It kind of reminds me of that Night Ranger one, and they both came out around the same time. This is Survivor.
Oh yeah.
Too Hot to Sleep. This came out in 1988 on CBS Records, and there's like a fiery sunset there. Again, not my favorite, but I wanted to pick something from my collection for every album. But it reminds me a lot of this. And I wonder if these weren't done right around the same time. And, neither of these albums were successful. So I wonder if they were just like, give us something quick, Hugh. Not that they're bad. They kind of remind me of each other in that way.
Which one of those came out first, Tim?
Boy, I think they both came out around the fall of '88. Like,
Oh,
I think it
okay.
would have been with weeks of the other. I'm really not sure which one came out first.
I was wondering
Probably
if
the
one
Night
of the
Ranger
bands
one,
said,
but I'm
give
not
me
sure
something like that other one.
because they were both they're both like in the delete bins within months. So that was Hold Your Fire. Okay, now did I have this written down right that Ralph has one for Presto?
Yes. that is
Okay.
correct. Like this one be a little quicker. All right. This one,
Aha.
Oh.
Yeah.
this is from a Def Leppard retroactive, I think. Right. So when I first saw it, I immediately thought war paint. They're on the mirror,
Good
and then
point.
then I just kept looking at it. I kept saying like, okay, well, Super Ductor can be in there, and then just like the way she's looking, like we've caught her in her illusion that she's got trying to put on for everybody. So I thought that went with the illusion themes of Presto, and also you got another foreshadowing Roll the Bones. This little, it kind of looks like a skull, the white around the mirror. So pretty cool.
That looks like that reminds me of the internal artwork. There's a picture of Getty looking at a mirror,
That's
and
right.
I think it's in Presto. He definitely has the Presto glasses on. I can't remember if it was in Presto or Roll the Bones, but it's definitely that.
Torbuck, right?
Yeah,
I
the
think it's Torbuck,
Torbucks.
yeah.
I think it's the Torbuck. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
But he's got like
That's cool.
4 or 5 different like noses like in front of him, like prosthetic noses.
Right.
Good choice.
Very cool. So this is one of the humorous ones I picked. Hopefully we don't get in trouble for this one. Presto. This
Oh my.
This is Great White, the unluckiest band in rock and roll. This is their 1991 album, Hooked. Actually, what you're looking at is the back cover of the CD, but that's the uncensored cover. This is the censored one. And I just thought, Presto, whatever. And again, let me just open this up. If you can see how the lyrics are written and the credits, the font, I mean, Hugh just takes over when he does the design. It's probably too blurry, but yeah, it's the same font. So now that brings us up to Roll the Bones. And Todd, you've got something for Roll the Bones.
Yeah, let's see here. So I chose this image right here, which is I'm pretty sure part of the Dream Theater art, and it looks like Distance Over Time.
Yeah, very much
artwork
so.
to me.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find that image. Like I don't have the special edition or anything of Distance Over Time, but I couldn't find that image. And I also wondered if maybe it was a Systematic Chaos image, because in that group of images there are ants. And so
Yeah.
I'm not totally sure where that ended up, but
Yeah. Or
but
it could have
I
been
liked it a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that. Okay. Ryan, what have you got for Roll the Bones?
I have this one here. So I couldn't help myself. I threw this one in last minute, being, that Iron Maiden is probably my second favorite band. This album cover, of course, is the only Iron Maiden album cover that was done by Hugh Syme. It is, very unique. It doesn't look like the Iron Maiden Eddie that we're used to seeing. It's very different, and it just got me thinking Bones. Like, Eddie was executed. There are his bones, and some skin and organs.
That's the X Factor, right?
It's called the X Factor. Yep, Iron Maiden's X Factor, mid 90s, 96, I think.
95.
95. Yeah, I think it's mid 90s. But yeah, I mean, I had to throw that in there with one of them. I had to match it up with something, and Roll the Bones just seemed like it was the best. So there's my my funny one, I guess.
There you go.
For this.
Cool. So for my Roll the Bones, this is the first time we have any repetition. I went with Def Leppard Retroactive.
Okay.
So yeah, it's got the optical illusion of the skull. It's also, if anybody's ever seen Alice Cooper's Dada album, they use the same sort of idea. I think it's like a Salvador Dali, the disappearing bust of what's it called? Anyway, yeah, it looks like a couple of figures, but you go back and it's a skull. So also, in some of the promo for Roll the Bones, Neil talks about something called vanitas, which is something the Dutch have, and the expression memento mori, which means remember death, and the transience of living things and the uselessness of vanity and all of that. Neil talked about that a lot when he talked about his lyrics for Roll the Bones. So yeah, the fact that it's a skull and it's got those things going for it, I thought that would be perfect for Roll the Bones.
We talk about that quite a bit on the deep dive for Roll the Bones too. So go check that out if you haven't.
So next up, Ryan's got one for Counterparts.
Yeah, this one's a weird one. I kind of found this one last minute too. But it's kind of like,
oh wow.
Oh yeah.
Come play with us.
Yeah, it's very horror-ish, if Rush took a horror themed I don't know approach, but does it really fit with any of the songs? No, it just is. I don't know, these twins that are one is it looks like one's a doll, like kind of like the puppet on Pharaoh the Kings, it's got the strings, but they just look like counterparts to me, things that go together. And of course this picture was titled Second Nature, so there's a little bit of a Rush pun there as well. So yeah, just creepy. But
yeah, can I add something to that? That
sure.
on Hugh's website says that he titles it Second Nature, the real cover. And so this album right here by the band Flying Colors, Second Nature, which is a kind of a super group with Neil Morris and Mike Portnoy in it. I believe, and I don't want to get this wrong, but I believe that cover that Ryan just showed was presented to Flying Colors and rejected. But I don't know that for sure, but the title seems to suggest that.
What's the title for that called?
This is called
Second Nature. Oh yeah, I got you.
And the image that you showed on Hugh Syme's website says Second Nature, the real cover. So
you get the feeling maybe that was one that Hugh had pitched to them.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So this is one of my favorites, and it works on so many Rush levels. This is another Canadian band called Honeymoon Suite. This is their second album, The Big Prize, came out in 1985. And you've got a married couple on here. You've got old people. You've got young people. But most of all, what brings us into Rushland is if you take a good look at this cover, the groom is a gentleman by the name of Neil Cunningham. Neil Cunningham was also the cover model for Power Windows. Now, both of these albums have 1985 copyright dates on them. They're both Hugh Syme album covers. I have to wonder if they weren't done at the same time. So this is 1985 on Warner Brothers. And yeah, for me, Counterpart, I had to use this for something, and Counterpart seemed to be the one that fit the most, because you've got the bride and groom, you've got people that are visiting, you've got people that are home. So yeah, that was my for Counterparts. So test for echo, that would be Ryan.
Yeah, so this one's more or less a carbon copy. I feel like this is just called the Nook Shook. Obviously, I don't think this was used for anything other than perhaps Hugh was just playing around with graphics, trying to make something else look like Test for Echo. I don't know, but maybe a modern day Test for Echo album cover, maybe an anniversary album cover. I just thought it looked cool, and thought it was something worthy of sharing, because it totally could have been used for Test for Echo, based on that postcard that Neil sent to Hugh, when from Yellowknife and all that.
Yeah. So my choice for Test for Echo is the biggest selling album of any of the covers that you'll see on here. This is something like a 7 million selling album cover. I don't know if a lot of people realize it's actually Hugh Syme artwork. And this one's kind of humorous. This is Aerosmith's Get a Grip from 1993, Geffen Records. It's got this ridiculous picture of this, this cow udder with a nipple ring on it, Test for Echo. I'm sure you'd get some sort of sound out of the cow, but yeah, believe it or not, this is Hugh Syme artwork. So I had to put it in somewhere. So yeah, there were a couple that I thought about using for Test for Echo. That's the one I ended up with. So that zips us ahead to Vapor Trails, which I'll do real quick. This is going to be the oldest artwork seen here, I believe. This is a band that gets talked about a lot in the history of Rush from the mid to late 70s. This is Max Webster and their 1978 album, Mutiny Up My Sleeve. And the original album cover doesn't have featuring Kim Mitchell on the cover here. I hate when they did that on these covers. But you've got, I could have used this one for Hold Your Fire, I suppose. This is an early example of Hugh's artwork, really fairly early, 1978. And it's also for Max Webster's, they're definitely their most regular looking album cover. The rest of their album covers are pretty out there, but I thought this was a good one to use. And I thought it would be cool to link the two together, since these bands they toured together so much and they've got so many connections, like Battle Scar and whatnot. So that was my choice for Vapor Trails. Feedback. I'll move right along to feedback. Now, I originally had the Test for Echo and feedback ones choices flopped, but I went with this one for feedback. This is Queensryche, Here in the Now Frontier, here spelled HEAR, 1997 on EMI. You've got these ears that are in jars. And I have to wonder, this album came out early 1997, just a few months after Test for Echo. And I have to wonder if this might have been an early idea that you might have pitched to Neil for Test for Echo. But, it's definitely it's a desert feel as opposed to a winter feel. But you can definitely tell he was kind of in a certain mode of design at the time. But I think this one works quite well for feedback, the fact that you've got these ears in jars. And Ryan's got something for Snakes and Arrows.
Yeah, you ready for this one? I don't think you guys are ready for this one. Here you go. Ready? Drum roll, please.
Oh, well, look at that.
So the story behind this, of course, if you aren't familiar with it, always promoting Snakes and Arrows Deep Dive, we talked about this, but the story behind this is Neil had the idea of the I think it's called the Shiva design, like it was on the front of
Leela?
Snake.
Wasn't it Leela, the game of snakes and arrows?
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but yeah. Anyways, Neil had this idea to put the board game, I thought it was called like Shoots and Ladders or whatever. But the story goes, Neil had this idea, brought it to Hugh. Hugh was like, well, kind of, I already designed something for Snakes and Arrows. Neil was like, no, he's really dead set on this one. He wanted this album cover to be used. So the Snakes and Arrows artwork that Hugh did ended up on the live album, and there's some internal art that Hugh did as well. But the live album, which is on the right, or I think this is, stretched a little bit, but um, I've spoken to, many Rush fans throughout the years that really don't like the actual Snakes and Arrows album cover. They think it's not, Rushian enough. They don't think it's Hugh Syme enough, right? Or at all. But look, I don't hate it. I don't hate the Snakes and Arrows actual one, but the one that Hugh Syme did, I think, is vastly better. And I think I definitely think that paired with the back cover, with the hands holding the snake and the arrow. Sometimes album covers make or break albums. I think there's a lot of hate for Snakes and Arrows, and I think if it was something a little bit more abstract, like what Hugh Syme did, you may have a little bit more love for that record. So there's my pick.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's one of very few times I think that Neil and Hugh didn't agree.
Disagreed.
And Neil's the client. So again, with that road sign on there, I want to bring this back in everybody's consciousness. Some people may be like, why didn't you pick that for Snakes and Arrows? For that very reason. Well, there's a connection because that's Coverdale Page, David Coverdale, of course, from Whitesnake. This is what I picked for Snakes and Arrows. This is Whitesnake's Slip of the Tongue album from 1989. Now, so you've got this like banner and this rose-like seal on the end of which is supposed to be a snake. Are there any arrows on here? Not really. But this is a classic Hugh Syme album cover. He also designed their mega 1987 album, both classic examples of Hugh Syme artwork. So that's the one I went with for Snakes and Arrows. Because I couldn't find a better one for Signals, or else I would have used the Coverdale Page album with the road sign on it, which leaves us with Clockwork Angels.
Tim, I would just say you are right. It was called Leela. Shiva is a Mortal Kombat character, so there's that. That's where Shiva's my mind was.
Shiva's a goddess in is it Hindu? Really, I don't want to get it wrong, but the one with all the arms, something like that. Which there is a figure depicted on.
So there you go.
Yeah. Okay. So the last one, this is definitely a humorous one, and yes, this is a Hugh Syme album cover. It's really the only thing I could think of for Clockwork Angels. It's Warrant Cherry Pie, and there's nothing really clockwork about it, but isn't she an angel? So that's the best one thing I could come up with. So yeah, there you go. This was fun. This was a really great exploration, really into the mastery of Hugh Syme's artwork, and without showing really any of the Rush album covers. We all know what they look like, but it is just interesting to think these are all ideas that pass through the creative mind of Hugh Syme at one time or another, and who knows, in another, twist of fate, kind of like Ghost of a Chance, something else might have ended up, and that's all we would ever have known. We would never think it was odd, because that's all we would ever have known if it had, a Rush, whatever the logo was, they went with that particular album and their album title on it. So guys, thank you for doing this and putting the work into it. I really, really enjoyed this one. I think we only had one piece of artwork that was used twice, and that was the Def Leppard one, and it wasn't even used for the same album. So I love how we all interpreted these different sources of Hugh Syme's material. And again, folks out there, HughSyme.com is a great way to check out his artwork, and so is his Instagram page, Syme Studio. And if you post an album cover that he designed and tag him in it, you might get a like, because I have. I'm not looking for them per se, but if you want to credit him for the artwork, then feel free to do it, because it does get noticed. I've had a repost or two too.
Leave a comment on this video too, if there's any youth or any either video, Rush fans or Tim's Vinyl Confessions. If there's any album covers that Hugh Syme did that, or any pieces of art that Hugh Syme did that you can link to and say, oh, this reminded me of Hold Your Fire, right? Leave a comment, because we would love to see your thoughts. See if there's any other ideas out there that folks could get creative with. So,
yeah, awesome. So yes, on behalf of Rush fans and Tim's Vinyl Confessions, I want to thank everybody for watching, and want to thank Ryan and Ralph and Todd for agreeing to do this, take my crazy idea and make an episode out of it. And everybody follow Rush fans on all of the socials, and follow me if you feel like it. And thanks for watching.
Take care, everyone.